My girlfriend left me waiting 2 hours at a fancy restaurant for my birthday dinner. When she finally showed up with another guy, she kissed him and sneered, "See, told you he'd wait," like a pathetic puppy. I just smiled, shook the guy's hand, and left. This morning she has 78 missed calls to her name and her stuff's in trash. Bags outside the apartment she just learned the pathetic puppy actually owns. My job is complex. I'm a fintech architect. My entire career is based on finding logical patterns inside of chaos. It pays well, but I live quietly. I value reliability over flash. I drive a solid, dependable car that will never break down, not a flashy lease that screams, "Look at me." I wear clothes that fit, not clothes that advertise. Jessica was different. She was a lifestyle influencer. The catch was, the lifestyle was mine. I paid for the $2.5 million penthouse. I paid for the spontaneous trips to Dubai. I paid for the endless collection of designer handbags that she would unbox for her 50,000 followers. The entire time she was living inside my balance sheet, I never told her the full scale of it. I just said I had a good job in tech. I wanted her to be with me, for me, not for what I could provide. This is the high-value provider's dilemma. When you've built something, you live with a quiet, constant question. Are they here for who you are or for what you have? You start to hide your success, testing people. You make yourself smaller just to see if they'll still see you. You want to be chosen for the right reasons. But in my case, I was just ignoring the answer. The red flags started about a year ago. They were small at first. "Daniel, you can't drive that car. It's bad for my brand. Can we not talk about your job tonight? It's boring." Then the narrative began to shift. She started referring to the penthouse as her place. In her videos, she'd say, "Welcome to my home," or "I'm redecorating my apartment." I never corrected her. I thought it made her happy. I didn't realize she was building a delusion brick by brick, an entire fantasy world where she was the queen of a domain she had absolutely no claim to. I just let it happen. I thought it was harmless. I didn't go home. I didn't go to another bar to drink. I drove past the penthouse. I went to my private office downtown, the one she didn't know about. The penthouse was her stage, her social media backdrop. This office was my war room. I sat in the dark for a moment, the city lights blurring outside. The anger was there, but it wasn't the hot, messy kind. It was cold. It was focused. It was the fuel for the engine that was already running. My first call was to my lawyer. He's expensive, and he's awake at all hours. He picked up on the second ring. I said, "It's Daniel. Activate Protocol Serpent's Nest." It was a contingency plan we'd set up years ago, a corporate firewall for my personal life, a name we'd joked about. I never thought I'd actually have to use it. He didn't ask if I was sure. He just said, "Consider it done. The firewall is up. I'll be on standby." My next move was digital. I opened my laptop. I logged into my primary bank account, the one that funded the entire lifestyle Jessica enjoyed. She had 3 supplementary credit cards linked to it, 3, each with a limit that could buy a small car. I clicked on the first one, cancel card. I clicked on the second, cancel card. I clicked on the third, cancel card. Effective immediately. And just as I confirmed the final cancellation, a notification popped up on my screen. A fraud alert, a pending transaction. Time-stamped 15 minutes ago. The amount, $7,500. The merchant Chanel. The status, declined. I just stared at that red text. I did the math. The toast, the kiss, the elevator ride down. She must have taken Kyle straight from the rooftop bar to the Chanel boutique 2 blocks away. She hadn't waited an hour. She hadn't even waited for the champagne in her glass to go flat. The public humiliation wasn't the end of her night. It was a celebration. She was buying a trophy for her new visionary, using the boring wallet's credit line. I had been funding the party for my own replacement. That last tiny ember of doubt, the small voice that wondered if maybe I was being too harsh, it didn't just go silent, it evaporated. The calm I felt at the party didn't just settle, it hardened into steel. My fingers moved to the next task. Methodical? I opened a different portal. This one wasn't for a bank. It was for DTech Holdings LLC, my holding company, the entity that holds all my real estate assets, the real source of the boring tech money. I navigated to the tenant management dashboard. I found the address for the penthouse. My penthouse. I drafted a new formal document. It was short. It was legal. A 24-hour notice to vacate the premises. It was addressed to Jessica, her last name, and any and all other unauthorized occupants. I hit send. The email went straight to her personal account. She wouldn't see it tonight. She was too busy celebrating her upgrade. But she would see it in the morning. The first countermove was made, the board was set. That public humiliation wasn't the start of the problem. It was the end. To understand what really happened, you have to go back 2 weeks. That's when Jessica started talking about Kyle, nonstop. Daniel, you have to meet him, she said. He's brilliant. He's working on this new crypto project that's going to change everything. She was relentless. She set up a dinner, so I met him, Kyle. He was exactly what you'd picture. 2 white teeth, a watch that was clearly a rental, and an aura of supreme confidence that only comes from having zero actual knowledge. He gave me the pitch for Newcoin. It was a masterpiece of buzzwords. Decentralized Web3 paradigm shift. He was promising 200% returns in 6 months. He just needed $50,000 in seed money. Jessica just stared at me from across the table, her eyes wide, practically vibrating. She was already spending the money in her head. I just nodded, listened politely, and said, "It sounds fascinating. Let me run some numbers." "Run numbers?" Kyle laughed. "Man, this is the future. You don't run numbers on the future, you just get in on the ground floor." I smiled. My boring job requires me to run the numbers. I went home, and I did what I do. My job as a quant isn't just to find good patterns, it's to find bad ones. I ran Kyle's entire Newcoin prospectus through my own risk analysis algorithm. I stress tested his projections, I cross-referenced the blockchain addresses he claimed to own. The result wasn't just risky, it was a complete textbook, 100% guaranteed Ponzi scheme. A house of cards built on thin air. The addresses were fakes, the projections were mathematically impossible. I told Jessica the next day, I said, "It's a scam, honey. The guy's a fraud. We are not investing." And that's when she turned cold. It wasn't a thank you for protecting us cold, it was a you failed me cold. I finally understood. She wasn't angry that I might get scammed, she was furious that I wouldn't fund the scam. I was the boring wallet that was supposed to finance her visionary. My refusal wasn't a smart financial move, it was a personal betrayal. The engagement party. That was her revenge. That was her proving that she didn't need my boring money because she'd found a visionary who was going to make them rich. So sitting there in my office hours after the party, I looked at the credit card decline, I looked at the eviction notice, and I realized one piece was still missing. I opened my email. I pulled up the full 20-page risk analysis report I had run on Newcoin. The one with all the proof, all the fake addresses, all the charts showing the guaranteed collapse. I attached it to a new message. I sent it to a private contact of mine, a person I'd helped in the past at the Securities and Exchange Commission, the SEC. The subject line was simple. Wire fraud evidence for Newcoin project. I hit send. I had protected my assets. Now, I was going to dismantle hers. I arrived back at the penthouse around 9 the next morning. Predictably, Jessica was there. She was pacing the living room like a caged animal, screaming into her phone. "What do you mean insufficient funds? Try it again, it's his card." She saw me and threw the phone onto the marble countertop. It skittered dangerously close to the edge. "My cards aren't working," she shrieked. "What did you do? Are you trying to control me after everything I did for you? You're pathetic." Her voice echoed in the cavernous space, the space I paid for. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't match her energy. That was her game, not mine. "I'm not controlling you, Jessica," I said calmly. My voice was even almost detached. "I'm just closing the account. You said I was a wallet. That wallet is now closed." She actually laughed, a harsh, disbelieving sound. "You think you can just cut me off? You think you can kick me out of my home? My lawyer will take you for everything you have. You'll regret this?" "You don't have a lawyer, Jessica," I interrupted, my tone still quiet. "And this isn't your home." I walked over to the marble bar. I placed a thin folder on the cool surface. The sound seemed unnaturally loud in the sudden silence. "You never really asked what I did with my money," I said. You just complained about my car. I slid the first sheet of paper out of the folder. I pushed it towards her. This is the deed to the penthouse apartment. It's owned by D-Tech Holdings, LLC. Her brow furrowed. Confusion flickered across her face. So what, your company? I slid out the second sheet. These are the articles of incorporation for that LLC. Sole member Daniel, I tapped my name printed clearly. My last name. The color drained from her face. The anger started to curdle into something else, something colder. You own this apartment, she whispered. The fight was leaving, her voice replaced by dawning horror. I shook my head slowly. No, Jessica. I paused then, let the silence stretch for 2 full seconds. I own the building. I paused again. Another 2 seconds, letting the weight of it land. The silence that followed was beautiful, pure, unadulterated shock. You see, there's this psychological trap called the assumption of ownership fallacy. It happens when familiarity breeds a false sense of entitlement. Jessica had lived here, she'd picked out furniture, she'd hosted parties here, told everyone it was her place. In her mind, the feeling of it being hers had somehow morphed into a belief that it actually was hers. She'd built her entire identity around this illusion, never once bothering to check the actual foundation. Because the foundation wasn't her concern, only the facade mattered. My first major investment, I continued my voice, still soft but firm now, cutting through her stunned silence. 5 years ago, my boring tech job bought this entire block. You've been living rent-free inside my asset portfolio for 3 years. Right on cue, the main door opened. 2 uniformed security guards stepped inside. Men I employed. Your 24-hour notice expired an hour ago, I said, gesturing towards them. You have 10 minutes to collect your personal essentials. Toothbrush, passport, maybe that ridiculous phone. Everything else, I glanced around the lavishly decorated room, will be professionally packed and donated to charity. She started shaking, not with rage anymore, with fear. I'll call Kyle, she stammered, fumbling for her phone again. He'll sort this out. Kyle, I raised an eyebrow. I'm fairly certain Kyle is otherwise occupied right now. As if scripted, her phone rang. But it wasn't Kyle, it was one of her influencer friends. Jessica snatched it up, desperate for an ally, putting it on speakerphone. We could hear the friend's panicked voice clearly. Oh my God, Jessica, are you seeing this? Kyle, he just got arrested. They put him in handcuffs, federal agents, something about crypto fraud. It's all over Twitter. What is happening? Jessica stared at me. The phone slipped from her numb fingers and clattered onto the floor. The last trace of defiance vanished. There was only pure, uncomprehending terror. She finally understood. I hadn't just closed the wallet. I had detonated her entire escape plan. The visionary was a fraud. The upgrade was a downgrade to federal custody. In the boring wallet, he owned the castle she thought was hers. She just crumpled, fell onto the expensive rug in a sobbing heap. The queen had been checkmated in her own throne room. She left with 2 suitcases. The security guards escorted her out of the lobby. Just 2 suitcases out of a life that had filled an entire spare bedroom. The smear campaign started almost immediately, of course. A tearful video appeared on her social media feed later that day, cropped tight on her face, mascara running. She claimed I was a controlling, emotionally abusive monster who had thrown her out onto the street with nothing simply because she wanted to end things gently. She conveniently left out the engagement party, the kiss, Kyle, the part where she called me a boring wallet. I didn't engage. I didn't post a rebuttal. That was her arena, the court of public opinion built on half-truths and performance. Mine was the ledger. I simply compiled 2 pieces of digital evidence. 1, a crystal clear video clip from the party, time-stamped, showing her passionate kiss with Kyle, sourced from one of her own friends' publicly posted stories. 2, the public record link detailing Kyle's arrest for federal wire fraud related to the Newcoin scheme. I sent both anonymously from a burner email account to 3 of the biggest online gossip blogs. The subject line, the other side of the story. Her narrative imploded within hours. The comments turned vicious. Wait, she cheated on him at their engagement party with a guy who got arrested. She called him abusive. The brands that had sponsored her lifestyle started pulling out. Contracts vanished overnight. Poetic justice has a way of balancing the books. Then came the call I was expecting. Her mother. She didn't introduce herself, just launched into a screaming tirade calling me every name imaginable, a cruel, vindictive man who had destroyed her innocent daughter's life. I let her vent, didn't interrupt, just held the phone slightly away from my ear. When she finally paused, gasping for breath, I spoke calmly, evenly. "Ma'am," I said, "your daughter publicly cheated on me with a federally indicted criminal at our engagement party. She was living free of charge in a property I own. That privilege has been revoked." Silence on the other end. "If you have any further complaints," I continued, "you can direct them to my legal counsel." I gave her my lawyer's name and number. "Have a nice day." I hung up. 3 months passed. The silence was incredible. The peace. I sold that building, made a tidy profit, moved to a new place across town, one she'd never seen, never posted pictures from, just clean lines, quiet work, and my own space. Then last week, I was at a high-end steakhouse downtown, finalizing a new deal with some business partners, and I saw her. Jessica? She wasn't dining there. She was working there. Standing by the entrance next to a polished brass sign that read, "Please wait to be seated." She was wearing a hostess uniform, black polyester. It didn't fit quite right. Our eyes met across the crowded room. The arrogance was gone. The influencer confidence, the triumphant smirk she wore at the party, all vanished. Replaced by something I'd never seen on her face before. Shame. Pure unadulterated shame. She looked away instantly, practically fled towards the back, disappearing near the kitchens. And I felt nothing. No surge of victory, no satisfaction, just closure. You know, it's easy to look at how things turned out. Kyle arrested Jessica, losing everything, me moving on, and think the revenge was sweet because the outcome was good. But we're often fooled by outcome bias, judging a decision based only on whether it ended well. The real victory wasn't seeing her standing there in that uniform. The real victory happened months ago, the moment I calmly walked out of that rooftop bar, the moment I chose my own self-respect over her chaos. The success of leaving isn't measured by the other person's failure or even by your own later success. It's measured by the peace you reclaim the instant you decide you're worth more. The business deals the new apartment. Those are just bonuses. The real win was choosing myself. That happened long before the consequences caught up with her. She wanted a visionary, but she couldn't see the plan. She wanted a wallet, but she never bothered to read the ledger. Your value is never determined by someone else's recognition. It's determined by the methodical, quiet actions you take when no one else is watching. Have you ever been in a situation where silence was the most powerful move you could make? And looking back, what do you think was the biggest red flag that Daniel ignored for too long? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you believe in smart strategic justice, subscribe to Project Checkmate. You won't want to miss the story we have coming next.